The plaza of Arcs 9 was a river of feet and voices. Vendors called out prices in a dozen languages. Lights pulsed in soft colors to guide traffic across the concourse. Music drifted from an arcade where a robot band played cheerful notes for passing tourists. Above everything, the transparent roof showed the pale glow of a dying star. It was beautiful in a sad way, like an old lantern still trying to shine. In that busy place, a small voice broke through the noise. "Please help."
My mom won't wake up.
Some eyes turned. Some ears flicked. Most people kept walking. A cargo drone hummed overhead. A group of traders laughed as they checked a price board. Security mechs pivoted in place, watching for the usual things: unpaid items, crowd fights, illegal betting. They did not bend to look at a little fox-eared girl with shaking hands and a tear-streaked face. Captain Elias Rowan heard her. He had just stepped off a long-haul shuttle from the inner planets. He carried a small pack, a travel cloak, and a weary look that comes from too many jumps between stars. He was not tall or loud or famous. He was an ordinary human with careful eyes, but the child's voice caught him like a hand on his heart. He changed direction at once. He found her beside a row of empty benches in the shadow of a column. The girl's ears were pointed and soft with white tips. Her eyes were wide and amber, and they were filled with panic. On the bench lay a woman with the same fox-like ears, her fur a warmer brown, her breathing shallow, her skin pale under short patterns of natural markings. The woman's hand twitched once and then fell still. "Hey," Elias said, kneeling. "I'm Elias, I heard you. I'm here." The girl sniffed, wiped her face with the back of her hand, and tried to speak fast at the same time. "She said she was fine. We sold the scrap. She bought food. Then she said the air smelled like copper. Then she fell. I can't wake her." "Name?" he asked gently. "Lumi," the girl whispered. "And my mom is Mara." Elias checked the woman's pulse. It was weak and thin, like a thread pulled too tight. He leaned in, careful and calm, and listened to her breath. He smelled something bitter and metallic near her lips. He looked at the girl again. Did she eat or drink anything right before she fell? "From that stall," Lumi said, pointing with a trembling finger toward a food kiosk that steamed and hissed with hot plates. "They gave us a drink. We could not afford meat, but they were kind and said the tea is free if we bring scrap." Elias's eyes flicked to the stall. Then he dug into his pack. He carried an old Earth med kit. It was not the newest model, but it was built to work even when fancy machines failed. He snapped it open. Small lights came on without fuss. A merchant walking by scoffed. "You can't help those people. Their kind sleeps anywhere. They will wake when they want to. They always act like this for attention." Elias did not look up. "She's not acting," he said, calm but firm. He slid a monitor over Mara's finger. The reading was ugly. Oxygen low. Heart stressed. He pulled out a spray ampule and a small filter mask. "Lumi, I'm going to help your mom breathe. Will you hold this mask on her face for me?" "You can do it." Gentle and steady. Lumi nodded, cheeks wet, hands still shaking but brave. She held the mask as Elias primed the kit's microfilter. He connected a simple rebreather to push clean, warm air. "I'm calling for medics," said another voice, but it held no urgency. A tall alien with blue skin tapped lazily on a comp brace. "They will take her when they get time." Elias looked up. "How long is when they get time?" "Arcs 9 triage is busy," the alien replied with a shrug. "Dogfight earlier. Broken bones are higher priority than a nap." Elias did not argue. He did not have time to waste. He used a skin patch to test for toxins. The patch blushed gray. He frowned. "Not a nap," he muttered. "Poison." Lumi's ears flattened. "Poison? Who would? Why?" "I don't know yet," Elias said. He kept his voice steady for her sake. He prepared a counteragent. It was general, not perfect, but it could buy time. She is strong. This will help her stay with us. He injected the dose into a thin vein at Mara's wrist. He watched the monitor again. The numbers climbed a little. He let out a breath he did not know he was holding. 2 security mechs rolled closer, red eyes bright under glass. "Is there a disturbance?" One droned. "Medical emergency," Elias said. "Possible toxin exposure. We need a sealed stretcher and a clean transport to med bay now." "Noted," the mech said. It did not move. "Toxin type?" "Unknown," Elias answered. "Fast acting. Bitter metallic smell. Skin pallor. Low oxygen saturation. Check the food stall, please." "The tea." "Noted." The mech said again, and still it did not move. Elias looked from the mech to the crowd. He saw faces that had already turned away. He saw a few that watched with curiosity, as if this were a show. He felt something hot under his ribs. Anger, yes, but also a deep, simple certainty. He would not leave this child alone. He would not step back and say, "It is someone else's problem." He leaned closer to Lumi. "You're doing well," he told her. "Keep the mask in place." "I need 30 seconds." He stood and walked to the tea stall. The vendor, a four-armed insectoid, looked annoyed. "Customers only," the vendor clicked. "I am a customer of common sense," Elias said in a dry voice. He looked over the counter. A kettle steamed on a coil heater. Beside it, a small dispenser for flavor additives, sweet syrup, spice drops, and a bitter tonic common among rail workers to keep them alert. The vial for the tonic had a stain around its cap. It looked like the color on Elias's toxin patch. He took a cotton tip from his kit, swabbed the stain, and pressed it to a fresh test strip. The strip flashed orange and then went dull. He did not know the exact compound, but he knew the family. It was a cheap industrial solvent often used to clean scrap. In small doses, it made one feel lightheaded. In larger doses, it could stop a heart. "Where do you get your tonic?" Elias asked, voice neutral. "Bulk," the vendor said. "Warehouse D21, same supplier as always." "Maybe your supplier changed the recipe," Elias said. "Or maybe someone changed your bottle." The vendor's antennae twitched. "It is not my fault if a scavenger cannot handle a worker's tonic," they said sharply. "Her kind should drink water." Elias felt that hot thing in his chest again. He kept his face calm. "Then you will not mind if security samples your stock." "Security never cares," the vendor muttered. "Security cares about fines. I pay my fines on time." Elias took a thermal photo of the bottle and the counter with his pad. He was not a cop. He was a traveler with a sense of right and wrong, and a habit of following threads until they made a rope. He went back to Lumi and Mara. Mara's eyelids fluttered. Her breath eased a little under the mask. Lumi gasped and squeezed her mother's hand. "Mom?" Mara did not answer, but she made a small sound that meant she was still here. Elias smiled at Lumi. "She can hear you. Keep talking to her. Tell her you're safe. Tell her I'm helping." Lumi bent close. "Mom, I'm right here. The human is helping." He has a gentle voice. "Please wake up." Minutes passed, slow as thick syrup. The medics did not come. The security mechs rotated away to watch a row of shoplifters. Elias kept checking Mara's pulse and the numbers on his monitor. When he was sure the counter-agent had taken hold, he packed the kit again and looked around. "Is there a clinic we can reach faster on our own?" he asked a passerby. The passerby shrugged. Another said, "Down 2 levels, then left past freight." A third said, "Those clinics cost credits. Do you have credits?" Elias crouched so he was eye level with Lumi. "Can you walk while we move your mother?" Lumi nodded. "I'm strong," she said, stubborn and brave. "We will need a flat carrier," Elias said aloud. He looked around and spotted a delivery bot parked with its cargo bed down. Its owner, a tiny reptilian engineer, was welding a panel nearby. Elias jogged over. "Excuse me. Can I borrow your bot as a stretcher?" "Emergency." The engineer lifted his goggles and blinked. "There is a deposit." "I will pay you double when we reach the clinic," Elias said at once. "Or you can come with us and keep your eye on it." The engineer looked past Elias to the girl and her mother. He clicked his teeth and stood, rolling his shoulders. "I will come," he said, as if annoyed with himself for caring. Together they eased Mara onto the cargo bed, keeping the mask in place and her head elevated. Lumi held her mother's hand. Elias pushed the bot while the engineer guided from the side, shouting now and then when pedestrians drifted into their path. The crowd parted a little, like water around a stone. They took a service lift down 2 levels. The air grew cooler and smelled of oil. The lights were less bright. A faded sign pointed toward a small clinic with a door that stuck halfway before sliding open the rest of the way with a groan. Inside, a medic with silver hair and tired eyes looked up. "No more fights," she said at once. "I have enough fractures already." "Not a fight," Elias said. "Toxin, fast-acting, she needs a purge and clean fluids." "I started a general counter-agent." The medic stood at once. "Put her here." She waved them to a table. Her hands moved fast but gentle as she checked what Elias had done and set up a clean line. "Good work on the first response." "Thank you," Elias said simply. The medic frowned at the toxin screen. This is an ugly mix, she murmured. Not a kitchen mistake. Someone added this on purpose. Lumi's fingers tightened around her mother's hand. Why would someone hurt my mom? The medic did not answer. Elias did. We will find out, he said softly. But first we will help her. The purge began. Mara. Elias walked through the wide corridors of Arcs 9 toward the Guild district. The station hummed around him with the sound of engines and thousands of footsteps. Colorful lights from shop fronts reflected on polished floors. To others it was an ordinary day. For Elias it felt like he was stepping into a storm that had not yet shown its full face. Behind him, Mara was resting in Clinic 11. Lumi stayed beside her, clutching her hand and whispering words of comfort. Elias had promised the little fox girl that he would come back with answers. That promise guided his steps more firmly than any map. The guild offices sat inside a dome lined with shining metal arches. Large banners floated above the entrance showing symbols of trade and profit. Guild clerks moved in and out, their clothes neat, their expressions proud and distant. Most passed Elias without a glance. To them, a human traveler was nothing special, but Elias knew he carried something heavy. Truth. And truth had a way of forcing doors open. He stopped before the front desk. A tall, stern alien with silver scales and a badge pinned to their chest looked down at him. Purpose of visit? The clerk asked. Health hazard report, Elias said simply. He placed the sealed vial and his scanned notes on the desk. Toxic compound found in food sold by Brass Kettle, one of your licensed vendors. Victim is a citizen named Mara, now being treated in Clinic 11. The clerk barely glanced at the items. The guild does not handle small accidents, they said. That is for medics. It is not an accident, Elias replied, his voice calm but sharper than before. The toxin was not in the warehouse supply. It was added later. Someone wanted Mara silenced. At the name, the clerk's eyes flickered, just for a second. But Elias saw it. Wait here, the clerk said stiffly, then turned and disappeared behind a tall door. Elias stood still. He could feel the drone still following him, hovering near the ceiling. Whoever had sent it now knew he was inside the guild building. He placed his hands loosely behind his back, looking casual, but inside his thoughts moved quickly. Minutes later, 2 guild officials appeared. They wore dark robes with shining sashes, symbols of rank. One was broad, with horns curving back from his head. The other was thin, with small lenses over his eyes. You bring claims, the broad one said, his voice heavy, but no proof of intent. Elias held their gaze. I have a lab report from the clinic. It shows stabilizers mixed with a tonic. A random spill does not make that pattern. The thin one adjusted his lenses. And why does a human traveler care? The fox people are not your concern. Because a child cried for help, Elias answered. His voice was steady, simple, but it carried through the hall. And I was the only one who stopped. For a moment, silence followed. Some clerks nearby glanced up, then quickly looked away. The broad official gave a small laugh. Compassion is noble, but it does not change rules. The guild cannot act on whispers. Then act on evidence, Elias said. He slid the data pad forward, showing his scans of the Brass Kettle stall. Residue matches the compound in her blood. That is not a whisper. That is a fact. The officials exchanged a look. The thin one tapped his lens, sending a silent message. Elias saw it but said nothing. You may go, the broad one said finally. We will investigate. Elias nodded once, then turned to leave. But inside he knew their words were empty. They wanted him to walk away. They wanted the matter to vanish in paperwork. He had seen that look before, in ports, in governments, in places where power lived on silence. As he stepped outside, the drone buzzed closer. Elias suddenly stopped, reached up, and caught it in one swift motion. Its small rotors whined as it struggled in his grip. He turned it over and pressed a button on its underside. The lens blinked red, then blue, then shut down. He carried it with him, tucked under his cloak. If someone was watching, they would now know he was not blind. Back at the clinic, Lumi rushed to him the moment he entered. Did they listen? She asked, eyes hopeful. They heard, Elias said carefully. But listening and acting are not the same. We need more. Mara stirred on the bed. Her voice was faint but stronger than before. The foreman. The scales. They cheat, I saw it. I wrote it down. She pointed weakly toward her small pack lying near the chair. Lumi fetched it quickly. Inside were folded scraps of paper and a small recorder device. Elias examined them. Numbers, dates, weight logs, all showing how the guild cheated scavenger workers by lowering scale readings and stealing their pay. "This is the proof they fear," Elias said softly. The medic frowned. "If you push this, they may push back hard. The guild controls half the station. Then we push harder," Elias replied. That night, Elias sat in a quiet corner of the clinic with his pad glowing faintly. He connected the recorder, copied the logs, and attached the toxin report. Then he prepared a message for the open broadcast board of Orcs 9. It was risky. Many ignored those boards, but some always watched. He hesitated for a moment. He was one man, not part of a faction, not a leader of a movement. But then he remembered Lumi's small voice. "Please, help, my mom won't wake up!" That voice was reason enough. He pressed send. The next morning, the board screens across the station flickered. Messages usually showed cargo arrivals, trade prices, and travel schedules. Now they also showed something new. Evidence of guild corruption. Worker poisoned. Proof attached. Do not look away. Crowds gathered to read. Murmurs rose. Some scoffed. Some shrugged. But some frowned and whispered to each other with serious faces. Inside the guild dome, the officials were furious. They summoned guards. They accused each other of leaks. But they could not erase the message, because copies had already spread into private channels. By noon, Elias was called back to the guild. 2 security officers stood by the door. They led him into a chamber lined with heavy panels and bright lights. The broad official sat at the table, face hard. "You broke order," he said. "I showed truth," Elias replied. "You think truth protects you?" The official growled. "It protects her," Elias said, pointing to the image of Mara's clinic record on his pad. "And it protects every worker you tried to silence." The official slammed his fist on the table. "You are one human, alone." Elias leaned forward. "Alone is enough, because one human listened when no one else did. And now more are listening." The doors opened. To the official's surprise, several scavenger families entered. Lumi was among them, holding her mother's hand. The medic had walked with them. Even the reptilian engineer with his delivery bot came, grumbling but present. "We saw the board," one scavenger said. "We know the scales are false. We will not stay quiet." The room grew tense. The guild official looked at the rising crowd outside the glass walls. More workers had come, drawn by whispers, by anger, by the rare sight of someone standing tall against the guild. For the first time, the official's confidence wavered. What followed was not a battle of weapons, but of voices. Elias presented the evidence again, simple and clear. The medic explained the poison scan. Mara, still weak, spoke a few words of what she saw. Workers added their own stories of cheated pay and missing records. Step by step, the wall of silence cracked. The guild tried to shout, to deny, to threaten. But every time they did, the crowd outside pressed closer. Even a few clerks whispered that they had long suspected the foreman's schemes. By evening, the guild could no longer deny. They announced the suspension of the foreman and promised a full audit. The broad official's horns drooped as he signed the order. It was only a beginning. Real change would take time. But for Lumi and Mara, it was proof that one cry for help could ripple through an entire station. That night, as the clinic quieted, Lumi sat beside Elias. Her ears twitched softly. "You did it," she whispered. "They listened because you made them." Elias smiled gently. "They listened because you were brave. You never stopped calling out." "But no one else came," Lumi said. Her eyes filled again. "Only you." "That's all it takes sometimes," Elias answered. "One person who will not walk away." Mara, resting with her eyes half closed, whispered, "Humans." "Hear hearts." Elias looked out the window at the stars. "Maybe that is our gift," he said quietly. The dying star of Orcs 9 still shone with a pale, fading light. But inside the clinic, hope burned brighter. And in a galaxy filled with silence, one human voice had proved that compassion could be stronger than power.